Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dive Deep. I'm Shelby Cornett, and I'm the ministry assistant at Cambridge City Christian Church. And I'm with Danny, my permanent guest,
Yeah, the guest that you're stuck with.
the guest that never goes away.
I'm I'm like the house guest that just won't leave, right?
Yeah. Welp.
So is this like a hint? Is this like a not so
No,
subtle
I
hint
mean,
that I need to leave?
you preach every week.
Well, that's
well,
most
most
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're stuck with me, so I guess here on your
Yep.
podcast you need to build a proverbial guest house, right, for your for your podcast because I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Well, I need a house myself first.
all right. Well, I get the point. Sorry,
Yeah,
you're
it's
stuck with me.
It is what it is. So,
So,
we're in a series about Proverbs.
yeah, I'm loving this series so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, at first I was like, this is so confusing. But I'm getting there. Because I had never done anything with Proverbs
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
And the last chapter I read in the story just listed a bunch of Proverbs. And I was like,
Yeah.
nope, I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like that we're breaking them down.
Yeah. Yeah,
Make it
and
easier to
the-
understand.
The really the challenging thing with this series is which proverbs to focus on because obviously we're doing a 9-week series. I can't do all of the proverbs in 9
Yeah.
weeks. I mean, we could go through a whole year in this book.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to hit some of the higher points, some of the bigger thematic ideas that are present throughout the book of Proverbs. So this week we talked about influence.
Yeah.
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 The Proverbs make me think of poetry.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of little poems.
Sort of. They're axioms. I don't know if you've ever heard what an
Axioms.
axiom is.
Okay.
An axiom is, I'm trying to think of the best way to define it. It's usually a kind of a pithy type saying that makes it easier for you to remember.
Okay.
And it's kind of a principle. They're principles that are summarized.
Okay.
So yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. Now, the thing with Proverbs is some principles that are in the book of Proverbs are only like in a verse.
Mhm.
So you'll run into some chapters in Proverbs where like every verse is something sometimes wildly different.
Mhm.
And then other times, like we went through Sunday, you'll have longer sections that deal with pretty much one idea.
Right.
Proverbs, one thing I didn't really talk about the first week we did this series, Proverbs are principles, but sometimes we have to be very careful when we look at the book of Proverbs to say that this is 100% going to happen.
Mhm.
So there's a proverb that talks about, teach your children in the way they should go, and they will not depart from it.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, that is true,
Mhm.
but sometimes it does happen. So
Yeah.
we have to keep that in mind. These are general principles that we should strive for, but not necessarily principles that always happen or take place. So, like for instance, this week we talked about influence.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you're influenced by ungodly things, very high probability that you're going to become ungodly, though not always.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've seen stories of people raised in just very ungodly situations and homes who become strong Christ followers. So, and the opposite can happen too.
Yeah.
You raise up a child in a strong family, you give them great influences, but then they end up going the other way. So it's, So got to be a little careful.
It's a book
with
of
these.
most of the time.
Yes, they're guiding principles, but as with principles, a lot of times principles don't always come to fruition, but normally they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So,
That was close. All right.
so influence.
Yeah.
I took a lot of notes,
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing I wrote was when you said your parents are a blessing, their teaching is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I didn't always think that.
So yeah, that's interesting you say that. So you're 25, right? So you're just now coming into that stage of your life. well, I wouldn't say just coming into it. You've been in it maybe for a few years, where you start realizing mom and dad aren't so dumb.
Yeah.
And I think everybody runs into that. I mean, I remember when
Mhm.
I was in high school, my mom and dad are dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. Now, I wasn't a very rebellious child. I
I could be.
followed the rules pretty well. But I remember many times thinking that's dumb, they're stupid, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got probably halfway, most of the way through college, and I'm like,
Mine was like when I had kids.
yeah,
It was like
yeah,
a reality check. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man,
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. And I think that happens to most. And I think what the writer in Proverbs is trying to say is, okay, I get that you think that you might think your parents are stupid, but just live like they aren't.
Yeah.
And it's going to save you a lot of trouble, because a lot of times what happens is we think they're stupid, we go off and do a lot of stupid stuff, and then we finally figure out they're not so stupid, and then you got to clean up the mess.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking of all these things I did
yeah,
that my parents would say, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And then I did it, and then
yeah,
it ended badly, and now
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. So I think that's
Should've
what
listened.
the author, that's what Solomon here is trying to say. He's saying what your parents have taught you really are good things. They're not out to get you. They're not out to take away your freedom. They're not out to ruin your life.
yeah,
They're trying to help you go down the right path.
guiding you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one day you'll figure it out.
You
just,
will.
Just
You
don't
will.
figure it out too late.
Yeah.
So,
And like
Yeah.
after I had the kids, it's like I call my mom
yeah.
like every day for
Mhm.
something. I'm like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah.
Especially when the kids were babies.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how that changes, isn't
I
it?
know.
They all of a sudden became smart.
Yeah.
Like
Like my parents know everything.
they were always dumb until you were about 21, 22 years old. And then all of a sudden they were smart.
Yeah. They're the all knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a miracle, right? They
Yeah.
went from being dumb to smart within a year.
Yeah.
So,
Nuts.
Yeah.
And then Corinthians 15:33
Mhm.
was bad company corrupts
Corrupts
good character.
Good character. Yeah.
And I made a note under that I think people influenced me before when they didn't even mean to.
Well, yeah.
So-
yeah. Yeah.
I think like it's like I wanted to be influenced, and
Mhm.
so it's not. I think people blame the people they're around for
Mhm.
their actions, but you let those people influence you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say when it comes to influence, there's probably two different types of ways that we're influenced. There's direct and indirect. So there's probably very little direct influencers in our life, like people that come right out and you see as a direct influence.
Mhm.
Your parents would probably fit into that group. You know that they're an influencer. But most of the influence we get is more indirect by media, social media, mass communication.
Mhm.
Those are more indirect. Like when we sit down and watch them, we don't sit there and think, okay, I'm going to watch this show and get influenced by them. It just kind of happens. Probably some of our friends, like you just mentioned, can even fall into that. You don't think of them as influencing you.
Right, and that's
but-
what I
but
thought
they
of.
do.
Like several years ago, my friends, they weren't bad people, but they made bad decisions, and then I was like, I want to do that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then I made bad decisions, and
Well, and in the proverb, that section there, it was toward the end. I think it was like verse 15 or 16. It talks about, hey, come along with us. Join our lot. I think is what it said. So in other words, be our friend.
yeah,
And so because of that relationship, then you're willing to maybe do some things you wouldn't normally do because you don't want to sever that relationship.
yeah,
It happens.
yeah. Like you don't
That's
want
what
to hurt
influence-
other people's feelings, so
Right.
you end up
Or be
messing
the odd
yourself
person
up.
out. Or
Yeah.
be the odd person out or left out of the group or yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we're so messed up.
We are very messed up people. Yeah.
And I do like everything we talk about and that you talked about Sunday, like I go back to like certain memories
Mm-hmm.
of like things that I've done. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, Shelby.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, and I mean the author here he's referring to the person as a son, so obviously it's a younger person.
Mhm.
So I think he's trying to keep them from making probably some of the same mistakes he made,
Yeah.
Solomon made in his early years. So yeah,
parenting. It's just parenting. It's like a cycle.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's funny. I've often thought parenting is as old as time, right? Since God created the world and Adam and Eve came into it, there's always been parenting.
Yeah.
But they've never written a parenting manual.
Somebody should.
Yeah, but the problem is that every kid's
Every-
different,
yeah.
every situation's different.
And I was thinking too, just more the parenting, not the influence part. It's like the same stuff from the time you're like a toddler all the way to when you're an adult. Circumstances just get bigger.
Yeah.
So like I tell my toddlers now, like, don't do that, and then they do it, and then they like get hurt or whatever, and it's like, I told you not to do that, and then they know I'm right, and then later in life, I know they're gonna do bigger stupid things.
That's very insightful, Shelby. I'm surprised by that. No, I'm just kidding.
You said that last time.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but that's true. What you're training your kids to do in the early years is to realize that there are consequences to the decisions that they make, so that when the time comes and they get older and the consequences are really big,
Yeah.
they
Like,
think through it.
Don't jump off the couch.
Yeah.
Don't jump off the couch, and then they get hurt. I'm like, I told
Yeah.
you not to jump off the
Yeah.
couch. So then later, when they do,
Don't jump off a ladder that's 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know, okay, I shouldn't
don't
do that.
hang out with these people, or don't
Yeah.
go do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I get stressed out about the couch thing. So
Yeah.
who knows what it's going to be later.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really what you're doing as a parent, is preparing them for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Even though in the moment you don't think of it that way. You're
In the
just,
moment, you're just, don't hurt yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, Shelby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really put some thought into this week.
I did. Actually, that one just came to me.
Wow. Well,
I'm
look
naturally gifted.
at you. Oh, boy. Naturally gifted. Wow. Okay.
Yep. Anyways, so the last thing I wanted
Uh-huh.
to talk about was the challenge for the week.
Yeah. Close one ear and open another.
And I wrote this, and then you said it. So for close an ear, I wrote unfollow people on social media, delete some social media ? And then you were like, well, maybe you should unfollow some people on social media.
Yeah. And again, those are the indirect influencers. So we talked about it a minute ago. There are people that we don't think of as influencing us, but they are.
And I thought of one person I follow on social media that is actually an influencer, like a celebrity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I should probably unfollow him.
Yeah. I mean, there again, I think we overlook a lot of things. Some of it is, I mentioned in the sermon, how we get tired.
Yeah.
Like we're just so inundated by influence that we kind of lose the stamina to be able to weed out some of those negative voices. So we just kind of leave it be, and it festers.
And you think too, like when I follow this person, I'm like, oh, that's not going to affect me. Like, but then
Yeah.
you could let it affect you
Yeah.
on accident.
Yeah. Well, what you can do, in the least, when you follow them, is that what you're doing is you're allowing their ideas that aren't godly to fit into to go into your head, at the very least. So, so whether you think that you're letting them do it or not, they're doing it. So yeah, it's hard though. It's hard. I mean, we have so much being thrown at us.
And then the open an ear. The first thing I thought of when you said open an ear was like finding someone in the church that's older than me to talk to and let just
That's
like build some
godly
kind of
and
relationship
maturity.
with.
Yes. There needs to be more of that in the church. There's not enough of that. Unfortunately, we're seeing this age thing going on. The older people stay away from younger people. That's a cultural idea.
That's
That
weird.
is not a biblical idea, because the Bible shows over and again the importance of having relationship with those that are older and more mature.
Yeah, you guys are old, and I
And-
hang out with you.
Oh my gosh. You had to fit that in.
You made fun of me for having an insightful thought.
My turn, right?
Yeah.
So would you say you're becoming wiser by being around us?
That's what I hear.
I think that's what you just said. So thanks for the compliment. The insult, the thing that you meant as an insult, God turned it into good.
Yeah.
And it was a compliment. Thank you, Shelby.
You're welcome.
Wasn't meant
Notice the
that.
eye roll.
But I mean, it's a cultural idea because when
Yeah.
you look in the culture, turn on kid shows. Something that was pointed out to me a few years ago. Turn on a lot of kid shows. You have parents in the kid shows, and how are the parents portrayed in a lot of kid shows? Like bumbling idiots.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're always trying to, if you watch them, I mean, the parents always just seem like they're dumb.
Yeah.
And,
I never thought of that.
Yeah, a lot of kid shows are like that, cartoons and things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea. It's that all the older people are dumb, you're smart,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's happening in our culture. And look at the mess we're in,
Mm-hmm.
because younger people are trying to figure it all out on their own, and they're making humongous mistakes
Mm-hmm.
that they don't have to make
Right.
if they would just listen to those who are older. My generation did it too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's sad because we could avoid a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-inflicted.
We could learn so much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's sad.
Yep.
That's all I had for this week stuff.
This was one of your better podcasts,
Thank
Shelby.
you.
Yeah. You did a good job
See?
this week.
Travis, if I'm not doing tech, I can sit.
If she's not doing tech, she can do a better podcast. So, okay. So
I'm gonna get
anyway,
in
no,
trouble.
there's nothing else. We'll just continue our proverb series. And
Yeah, what's next week?
So, gosh, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I'm trying to remember. I haven't started my prep work yet.
It's-
I know what it is.
It's Tuesday.
Or no, I don't. Nope. I'm gonna have. It'll be a surprise.
Yeah.
No, I'm running behind this week.
So come Sunday and see the surprise.
Yeah, surprise. No,
Yeah.
that's awful. But no.
All right. So next week we'll talk about proverbs of some kind.
Yep. We'll
And
continue talking about
Think
it.
this week about opening an ear and closing an ear.
Yeah, that'd be a good thing to do.
So
Mhm.
have a good week and we'll see you next week.